Eamon, donor-advised funds have quadrupled over the past decade to over $140 billion. They now account for about one of every $8 that Americans give to charity every year. But philanthropist and billionaire John Arnold says the funds have become tax-free warehouses of cash, largely for the wealthy. Now, when you give to a fund, you get an immediate tax deduction, but there is no deadline to actually distribute the grant. So the money grows tax-free. It generates a lot of fees for the management companies, and it may not go to charity for decades or even generations. A new bill in the Senate would impose new requirements on donor-advised funds and change the way they operate. Joining us now is the philanthropist that is out to change all of this, John Arnold. John, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. And it's great to be in New York. It's a wonderful city.
Right above Times Square. Yeah. So these funds have helped Americans give more to charity. If you look at Fidelity, they say last year they gave $9 billion in grants. That was up 24%. Schwab was up 35%. They have helped more Americans give more. What is the problem?
So I'm part of a coalition that's trying to ensure that the philanthropic donations that receive a federal tax benefit actually make it to the community in a timely manner. So Laura and I both have a foundation as well as a donor-advised fund. What we're trying to do is think about how to make sure that that tax benefit aligns with, in a timely manner, that money gets to the community. So in a private foundation, you have at least nominally a 5% spend rate, right? Now, there are some big loopholes in that, but in a donor-advised fund, there's no requirement to ever give this money, and the data bears this out. So last year, in 2020, when the call on philanthropic resources was perhaps its greatest ever, right, we saw 35% of DAF accounts didn't make a single dollar of distribution. Right? In the past 4 years, 10% of accounts haven't made a distribution. So while most of the DAF holders and DAF sponsors are behaving in a way that's kind of coherent with the intent of the law, there's too many dormant accounts. And that's what we're really trying to get at.
A lot of wealthy people say, look, don't mess with philanthropy. Don't regulate philanthropy. It already works well in America. They say this is essentially a solution in search of a problem because donor-advised funds, they say, give out 20% a year. And they say, look at Fidelity, they have a rule where if your fund doesn't give money for 2 years, it automatically takes 5% away. So can't they just self-regulate this? Does Washington have to get involved?
So there are many DAF sponsors who are kind of acting in a good manner, right? They're requiring that those funds be active and be active in a material way, right? And Fidelity is one of those. So when we've talked to some of the largest commercial sponsors of DAFs, right, the reaction is often like, we agree. It's what we're proposing isn't something radical. They're saying that's logical, right? But there are some DAF sponsors who have virtually no requirement on activity. And that money can sit there in a wealth warehousing vehicle forever. It's received the tax benefit on day one, right? But that money never has to go to the community. And so that 20% number that you hear the industry throw around is kind of not legitimate for a couple of ways.
Yeah, it just sounds strange, and I don't know how DAFs came about, but the idea that you can get a giant tax benefit today for money that sits there, it grows, it generates management fees for the investment companies, but doesn't get to the people who need it. I mean, it does sound like it needs a fix.
Right, and it's part of the tension in the system is these management fees. Right, so community foundations are a large sponsor of DAFs, right? And the community foundations generally have a mission that says something like maximize the general welfare of our community, right? And so we've had many community foundations say this proposal is right along those lines, right? Moving money from investment accounts into the community is our mission. Now, we've had others that have looked at it and I think get seduced by the management fees from AUM, right? And there's that tension because the more money that sits in the investment account, more management fees.
They have an incentive to want it to sit there and grow.
But their main mission is how do you benefit your community? And that's where the tension and the debate's happening in the industry right now.